Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 19th of February, comes to you from London. And we start, as always, by looking at the dollar index. Dollar recovering somewhat the last couple of days, so we are just seeing the short-term cloud being tested from below, but we're still very bearish on these charts. Looking at the euro, we see here that the euro is also just coming off its top. So as the dollar is slightly improving on the short term, the euro is slightly weakening, but we are still holding the bullish position there. So that's quite key. Taking a look at the Japanese yen, we're seeing here dollar just recovering a little bit as well, but still this bearish move below the cloud quite key. Taking a look at sterling, sterling is just coming off the top of 142 back to about the 140 level this morning, so that's also quite key, but still looking bullish medium and long term against the dollar. Just dollar weakness, the dominating effect there. Against the euro, sterling improving slightly, just moving above the cloud short term, so giving us a little bit of respite, but we did actually activate that downside target of 108, so that is now hanging over us. We see here against the Swiss franc, sterling looking stronger as well. The medium-term chart, though, is still quite bearish. And against the Aussie dollar, we're sitting at 177, so we're seeing a move down there as well. Looking at Bitcoin, Bitcoin recovering back above this $10,000 level, 10,800. Interestingly, here this morning I'm running on Thomson Reuters icon data. I normally run on Bloomberg data, and we're seeing here this chart's just slightly different, and that's to do with the fact that we've got these big spikes that are not showing up in the Bloomberg data, so that will affect the clouds because the clouds are calculated on the high-low data. So Bitcoin looking bullish in the short term. Here on the medium-term chart, we did go bearish, whereas on the Bloomberg data, we didn't. So that's quite interesting, just the slight differences there. But nonetheless, we are bullish. We've got good upside targets, back above $10,000 on Bitcoin. The S&P 500 index closed up on Friday very slightly, but ended the week on a strong note, really. So we are just seeing here that the market is now very much in recovery mode and looks set to go higher this week. The NatGas also made its recovery on Friday, just bouncing off the cloud and pushing higher as well. And the Dow Jones, and we've got upside targets of 5.6 on the Nasdaq. The Dow also recovering 7% upside target, looking very strong indeed. So the market very much in recovery mode. Of course, we need to make a new high above the high that we saw in January to be comfortable that this is just a correction. If we make a lower low, that's not so good. The Russell 2000 also looking strong. The S&P future up 0.4% this morning, and the Nasdaq E-mini much the same. These charts all still in bullish mode, so market looks set to open higher today and continue its run. FTSE 100 up very slightly this morning. Just trying to get back above the cloud in the short term, but bearish in that medium term chart still. And the FTSE 250 also just starting to come through and look a little bit more bullish. But FTSE stocks the UK stocks just underperforming globally at the moment. The Xetra DAX also just recovering through. And as I'm on Thomson Reuters, I thought I'd take a look at the CAC 40. Here we see that we're just coming through on the cloud as well. So European markets recovering. Europe just looking, the continental markets looking just slightly better than FTSE at the moment. The Japanese market, here looking at the Nikkei 400, and it's actually just recovering slightly on this cloud. It was a little bit worrying that we did go through on the chart, but Japan now looks set to be recovering, and we're seeing also on the Hang Seng index that we're bouncing off the cloud here quite convincingly, so that looks quite strong as well. The Chinese market also looking strong in the recovery, but to be honest, it's really just below the clouds and probably now standing as the odd man out in Asia. The long-term chart just hanging on there. The Sensex, the Indian market, has looked very strong in the long-term charts, but short-term has turned bearish, and we do have these downside targets of some 2 and 5%. So India and China just underperforming in this start of the year in this latest stock market rout. The Aussie market just getting back above support, not quite through yet on the cloud, but does look like it's finding support in the short term and quite a good set of upside targets there. Taking a look at Brent crude. Brent's sitting at 65.18 this morning. We're in bullish mode, sorry, on the short-term chart, and the medium-term chart we seem to be finding support. We've got targets to 66.50, 66.36, so it does look like we're going at least another dollar and a half higher. Like crude, we're seeing WTI. We are also looking bullish here as well, and on the on heating oil, similar looking charts as you'd expect to crude oil. US NatGas sitting at $2.61, just coming through the cloud into a bullish chart, but we are still very bearish looking on this medium term and long term chart. So it's not a good start to the year for US NatGas, Henry Hub. Copper just getting above the cloud here, so still holding its bullish position, bullish on all three time frames. And if we look at some of the softs, look at coffee. Coffee's actually been falling through the floor, and we see here we're just on this bearish short term as well. So most of the softs really underperforming as coffee's lower. We're seeing here also that cocoa actually is the odd man out. It is actually just rising quite strongly on the short term chart, but bearish still in the long term. And if we take a look at sugar, we see here that sugar is also looking bearish. A lot of the softs just looking quite bearish. A big story last week was gold. We were hitting that 1360 level. We're just pulling back a little bit this morning, but we're still bullish on all three time frames really. Gold's still looking pretty strong, and short of just activating these upside targets, but looking better and better all the time. Silver also, as you would expect, is looking similar to gold, not quite as bullish on that short-term chart. US 10-year yields, which really has been the driving force behind this market fright and fears of inflation returning. We're seeing the 10-year yield just pulling back to the high 280s, but still looking very stellar on the chart. So quite an amazing looking chart there as well. And the bond, just the German bond, this is actually the bond, not the yield. We're seeing German bonds turning bearish for the first time in some time, so it does look like yields going higher, and the bonds generally just going into a bear market. Apple sitting at 172, looking quite strong again, pulling back through the cloud there on the short term. Amazon also, just looking at the tech majors here, Amazon has actually been one of the best looking charts through all of this and still looking bullish and on the verge of making new highs again, so of course that would be confirming action. Alphabet, or Google as some people still call it, moving up the chain as well, just getting back above the cloud and also just short-term turning bullish. Facebook's had a lot of woes lately, just really struggling to break back above this 180 level, sitting in the high 170s. So it's still looking bearish here, but does look like it's finding support on the cloud and has got lots of upside targets. And Microsoft has really had an amazing year and a half, just surging up the trend. Like so many tech stocks, a couple of years of just going up the hill here, nearly doubled in value. So Microsoft looking strong and back above the cloud as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.